Hey there, welcome. My name is Jessica Buchanan, and I'm a New York Times bestselling author, professional speaker, and founder of Soul Speak Press, a non traditional publishing company created for women who've been through something, now they know something, and they can teach us something. In Her Words is a podcast designed to support aspiring memoir authors on their writing and publishing journey. It's hard work, this writing and publishing stuff, and I want to empower you with encouragement and information so you can keep sharing your truth. So grab your coffee, your notebook, find a quiet space, and let's dive in. Well, hey, beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of In Her Words. If you're watching this, I want to point out my very cool earrings that are little pieces of paper. No, they're book pages is what they are, that have been created into earrings, and they were a beautiful gift from one of our authors and one of our Soul Speak Press team, Jess Greenwood, and I just love them, and so I can't stop looking at them. But if you're listening to this, then you're not going to know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I digress because that has nothing to do with what I want to talk to you about today. We are a couple of weeks post-launch from Deserts to Mountaintops, our third volume, The Pilgrimage of Motherhood. And this is always such an interesting part of this journey to me. I like to stand back and just kind of see what's going to happen. When you're working with a group of 22, myself included, authors, you got a lot of different personalities, got a lot of different intentions as to participating in this experience. You've got different levels of experience around marketing and social media. And just, I think sometimes some authors get to this point and they're just done and they don't really care about selling the book or promoting it or marketing it. They have like other jobs, and this isn't like really why they did it. So, but there are always a few, sometimes more than a few, who are very interested in making their investment back through book sales, through speaking events, book signings, that kind of thing. And they're very motivated. And so they go to all corners of the US, even the world. We have authors from all over internationally who are getting their first taste at what it means to be an independent, an indie author from an independent book publisher, which is what we are. Now, I had one author put in the text that she didn't understand why our book wasn't at Barnes and Noble, like on the shelf. And I was just like, well, we've talked about this. We really promote online book sales because we are independent. Our books are available on Ingram Spark, which is a big, huge book distributor. It's the largest book distributor in the world, essentially. And so anybody can walk into a Barnes and Noble and order our book, no problem. But you're not going to be able to walk into a Barnes and Noble and find our book on the shelves. And why is that? People don't understand, even though I've been like talking about this for years. And we try really hard to educate our authors pre-launch as to why this is. We provide every author that we work with, whether it's an anthology or they're, writing their own memoir manifesto, we provide them with sales sheets with the ISBN number, all of the information that they need from Ingram so that they can walk into Barnes and Nobles or they can walk into like an independent bookseller and say, hey, I'm an author. I just participated in this book, or I just wrote this book. I would love it if you would consider ordering a few copies and stocking them on their shelves. Now, we've had a variety of authors in a variety of locations do this as of like yesterday, and they have gotten a variety of responses. I would love to say that normally local booksellers will have like a local corner where they'll put their local authors and showcase their local authors, but that's just not true. And even if they do, I'm not really sure what their criteria is for stocking local authors' books. Now, you got to remember, and I think we forget this, and I hate to be the person that's always harping on the bottom line, but I feel like this is really important information because you all need to curb your expectations. just like publishers, just like marketing companies, just like anybody, PR, publicity, anybody, the bottom line is always going to be what's my return on investment. Now, bookstores are the same and they're struggling. Okay, they're up against Amazon, they're up against self-publishing, they're up against book talk, like all kinds of, there are all kinds of ways to buy and purchase books nowadays. And they're just trying to make a dime too, especially these independent bookshops. So they need to know, they need to feel assured that when they buy these books from the distributors, that they're going to be able to sell them and that they're not going to have to return them and then pay for the shipping. Okay, so what do you think happens if you go in there with your sales sheet? You have spent no time building a brand. You do not have a following. You just go in there with your book that was published from Soul Speak Press, and you have put all your work and all your, life savings into publishing this book, but you haven't set aside any time to create a strategy or, you know, put any energy into creating your brand, your author brand, and promotion for this book. Why would they want to stock it on their shelves when they have no idea who you are? When they take a look at your social media profile and it's clear that you haven't been on there since 2020. When you have 3 reviews on Amazon. You get where I'm coming from here? Like, I'm telling you, I just like, sometimes I want to scream. I'm getting riled up here. Okay, Jess is getting ready to preach. This life, this industry, this authoring of books is hard effing work. Okay? It is a hustle. And if you think that you're just because you got an interesting story or because you have an MFA in creative writing that you're going to waltz out of your office with your manuscript in hand or your pretty little book proposal and somebody's going to give you a proposal or they're going to put your book on their shelves and you haven't spent the time in building your author profile, building your author brand, building a following, and bringing the audience with you, no one is going to give you the time of day. And I hate when I meet with authors who are so dejected and they feel so like they just feel so disappointed and they don't understand because they've got a great story. They're great writers. All of that may be true. But if you haven't spent the time creating that audience and bringing and cultivating those relationships with your readers through your work and through your author brand, because it's not about your book, it's about you as an author. Okay, newsflash. And I'm going to be doing more around this. And I've said this in building, and I think we did an episode on building an author brand. Your brand is not your book, your brand is you and what you bring to the connections and the relationships that you bring to your readers and to your followers. Okay. Think of being an author as being a content creator, just in a different medium. I'm sorry, but that's the way the industry works these days. So I'm going to stop yelling at you and I'm going to give you 7 reasons why it's really hard for independent authors, especially. And if you publish with Soul Speak Press, you are an independent author, even though we work with Ingram and you have worldwide distribution. You're still considered independent, and you're an independent author. Okay, so bookstores. Reason number 1, bookstores prioritize large publishers. Newsflash. This is not new, right? Major publishers like Penguin, Random House, HarperCollins, they have long established relationships with bookstores. We're talking like 50, 60 years. These big publishing houses have huge marketing teams, right? That go out with their catalogs that probably come out quarterly. And they go out and they sell these books and they have these huge budgets. Well, they're probably increasingly getting smaller and smaller every day, but to go out and basically convince these bookstores, like these big retailers, why they should stock these books. And what do you think? What kind of information do you think that they're bringing to Barnes and Noble when they want to convince them to purchase one of their books, one of their authors' books? What do you think? They're looking at audience, they're looking at reviews, potential reviews, they're looking at already established platforms, they're looking at prior success, they're looking at sales, right? Again, this is a business. They're looking at the bottom line. These publishers offer bookstores benefits like returnability, bulk discounts, and marketing support. We can't do that here at Soul Sweet Press because we are a small independent publishing house. We just can't compete. That's not what we are. Indie publishers lack this leverage, making bookstores hesitant to stock their books, right? Now, a lot of people, a lot of bookstores have heard of us. We have good working relationships with some local bookstores, but a lot of them haven't. Um, and we are not going to pay, and you're not going to pay for them to return the books. Are you? Are you going to keep track of that? No, of course not. And why should they pay to return your books if they don't sell? Okay, so distribution barriers. This doesn't really apply to us, but for those of you who are listening to this and perhaps you're self-published or you're thinking about self-publishing, most bookstores prefer to order from large distributors like Ingram or Baker and Taylor. If an indie book publisher isn't listed with these distributors, bookstores may not want to deal with direct ordering. They're not going to want to order directly from you. Okay? That's just the bottom line. They're not going to want to do that unless they know you or unless they feel heavily invested in supporting local authors. Without a distributor, publishers must handle logistics like invoicing, returns, shipping, which is time consuming. And none of us are going to do. I mean, we will order your books for you at Wholesale as an author if you want those. But we are not in the business of distribution, which is why we focus all of our efforts on online book sales. 3, sorry, I'm losing track here. Reason number 3, limited shelf space and high competition. Shelf space is real estate, right? Think about like all of the makeup brands when you walk into CVS. I'm sure that there is so much competition to get onto one of their racks, right? It's the same with bookshelves at bookstores. Bookstores have limited space and prefer books that are likely to sell. They prioritize bestsellers, celebrity authors, and books with big promotional budgets, especially for memoir. And then indie books often lack the mainstream recognition to justify taking up shelf space. So if you're like, okay, yeah, I get it, Jess, I get it. The other, like, this is where I'm like, publishing a book is going to either cost you on the front end or it's going to cost you on the back end. If you are committed to having your book in a big box retailer or in a bookstore, and I've had a book, I've like walked into the airport bookstore and seen my book on the bestseller shelf. It's a cool feeling, but it didn't change my life. I mean, I guess in a way it did. I don't want to be hypocritical here. It did set me up for success. I often wonder like where I'd be if I hadn't written Impossible Odds yet. But I'll tell you what, if I'm working on my second book, my second solo book right now, and I'm sure I could sell it in the traditional market because of the established success I've had in the traditional space, and because I have a large following, and because I have, probably 50 speaking events scheduled a year, I know that I could sell it in a traditional market. But I know that it's very hard and very limited shelf space to compete with. And do I want to sign over my rights and my creative control and royalties over to a bookstore who may or may not be able to get me onto those shelves? Absolutely not. I'm going to publish it through Soul Sweet Press because then I can control everything and I get 100% of the royalties or 70% from Amazon and Ingram when it's purchased. Okay, reason 4, return policies and financial risk. Most bookstores expect books to be returnable, meaning unsold copies can be sent back for a full refund. Why should they go into debt for your book that didn't sell? Indie publishers often can't afford to take returns or offer deep discounts, making bookstores reluctant to stock their books. I don't think I need to explain that anymore. Okay, reason 5, lack of marketing and brand recognition. Bookstores prefer books that come with built-in demand from advertising, media coverage, or an existing fan base. Indie publishers usually don't have the budget for widespread marketing campaigns, or the indie authors haven't taken the time to build their author brand. I just can't stress this enough. Whether you go traditional or you go self or you go hybrid or somewhere, somewhere in between, you have got to invest your time, your money, and your mental energy into developing a brand, an author brand, if you want to be successful in this business. That's just all there is to it. Okay, reason 6. Difficulty in meeting wholesale pricing. All right. Large publishers sell books to bookstores at 40 to 55% off the retail price. I don't know about you, but I don't want to sell books at $10 a copy to a bookstore. Independent publishers often can't afford to offer such deep discounts, making their books less attractive to stock, right? Because we're not selling them in bulk. Reason number 7, local and regional bias. Some bookstores will stock indie books, but only if they're local or have a strong regional tie. And that's where I would definitely recommend you lean in. I live in Alexandria, Virginia. There is one local bookstore in Old Town Alexandria, and they do not support local authors because of all of the reasons that I just mentioned. And I've had a couple authors from the anthology go in there and try to get them to order our books, and they won't do it. Um, and I'm like, yeah, I know. You think I haven't tried that? But I'm nonplussed about it because, I sell through Amazon and I sell at speaking events, and those 5 books that they might sell at the bookstore just don't mean anything to me. I don't understand why we get so hung up on this other than we think it's like the right way to do it, or it's the way we've always dreamed or the way we've always pictured. But if you think about like the brass tacks and like the bottom line of like what it does for you, like building your author brand, does selling, like having, like other than taking a picture and having that posted on social media, like let me ask you, how is it going to promote your business or your sales or anything really in getting your book in a bookstore? It doesn't change my bottom line. I'll tell you what, I just shipped 4 boxes of books to a book signing that I'm going to be doing out in Denver. And we'll be able to, make hundreds of dollars on those books. And donate it. We're actually donating it for a good cause. But like like if I didn't get invited out to that because somebody saw my book in a bookstore. I got invited out to that because I built a reputation and an author brand. So I want to challenge you to think about why you so badly are committed to this idea of this traditional track so that you can have your book in on the shelves of bookstore, because you could be waiting 2 to 10 years to get an agent to take you and then shop your proposal and then sell it, all for this promise that might not happen because you don't have a big enough profile, or they're not into female memoir in 2029 when your book actually gets sold. um Okay, here are some suggestions on how you can improve your chances. Okay. So use a major distributor like Ingram Spark or Small Press Distribution. If you work with us, we're going to be doing that. Offer returnability through a distributor, even if it's risky. We don't do that. Again, I'm not going to mess around with that. It's a lot of work. Build strong local demand so bookstores see the book as a must-have. I guess maybe you could see if the bookstore will let you hold a book signing and sell tickets and guarantee that you're going to bring, 75 people into their bookstore who are going to sell something, or I'm sorry, buy something, so that perhaps they're going to sell something else. Develop relationships with the store managers and pitch directly. And then invest in marketing and publicity to generate demand before approaching bookstores. Um, okay, I feel like I was really negative and a little harsh and critical. As you can see, this is something I get really fired up about because it just doesn't make sense to me. It makes sense to me. It doesn't make sense why so many people push back. At the end of the day, you're going to spend a lot of money. regardless of whether you're working with a publisher, a traditional publisher, or a hybrid or self-publishing. And you get to make the choices. You get to call the shots. Like at the end of the day, this is your story and this is your work, and you need to honor it in the best way possible. And so I just want to be here to give you some alternatives to think about and offer you some insights in terms of why the industry is operating the way it is, because I know it's frustrating. So if you have more questions, reach out. We have a lot of things in the pipeline coming up. We have a new offering that I'm excited about, but we're not releasing it until probably next week, maybe the week after, definitely by the end of February. We're just tweaking a few things, but it's very exciting. And it's going to make publishing so much more accessible to so many women out there. And I can't wait to tell you about it. And then until then, I hope you just follow us on Instagram. I've been getting on there as much as I can, as much as my mental health will allow me to. And if none of those things work, then just email us directly at hello@soulspeakpress. And we're happy to answer any questions or send you a submission form. And as always, I hope you just keep writing. In Her Words is hosted by me, Jessica Buchanan, and is produced by SoulSpeak Press, a non-traditional publishing house for women who are ready to tell their story. If you would like to know more about our submission process, I encourage you to check us out at www.soulspeakpress.com or follow us over on Instagram at SoulSpeakPress. We appreciate all your questions, and if you would like to leave us a review, we would be so grateful.